Bird Control is a deck that always has to adapt to its surroundings, and despite Shrouded Fable being a mini set, it does have a pretty big impact on the standard metagame. So I'm sure if you've seen any of my recent streams or videos, or I mean, even clicked on this video, you saw it on the thumbnail. I've been playing Bird Control with Luxray EX in a very different build than really has ever been played in the past. And Luxray EX got a lot of people excited when it was first revealed.
Yeah, Luxray EX control seems pretty good. That seems pretty good for sure. I'm definitely excited for that one.
It seemed like such a natural fit in control decks for just one energy being able to just discard whatever card you want from your opponent's hand, and it never really caught on as a successful deck or package in any previous format Bird Control lists. So what's changed? It's just a mini set after all. So in order to reasonably fit Luxray into your deck, it eats up 11 card slots. So the opportunity cost to play it is incredibly high. So in order to be justifying that many slots in your deck, is be very sure it's going to be an integral piece in several matchups, which we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Luxray EX is very important in several matchups because this format has gotten a lot faster. Charizard can play much more aggressively into us with Dusclaw. Regidrago has an answer for Mimikyu now, as well as Kyurem to take prizes faster. So we sort of necessarily have to be faster to counteract that, and Luxray just lets us be a much more aggressive disruption deck. Bird Control strategy in the past has been basically just to create an advantageous board state by getting rid of particular resources, so one of your different sweeping options could win, and those sweeping options being Ursaluna, Ogerpon, Mimikyu, or Chi-Yu. Looking at this list, a couple of those options are absent from this list. So what Luxray kind of makes up for in the loss of options is we basically are a control deck that can take a 2/2/2 prize map in any one matchup, which is sort of enabled by the new upper energy. I'm sure y'all have, if you played Control in the past, you have those awkward early games where your opponent's not doing a lot, but also you can't really do a lot either until they take prizes. Now with this build, if they start off slow, you can just start blowing stuff up, and if they don't really do something quick, then the game's going to end rather quickly. Even our optimal game plan into a handful of matchups is just going to be a prize race deck, going Luxray EX into Ursaluna attack, into Ursaluna attack, and just winning by taking 6 prizes and totally foregoing any kind of disruption step at all. And kind of alongside that aggressive theme, we're not playing as thick of counts of stuff like Penny, Countercatcher, Pal Pad, because not only do we just not have space for that kind of stuff, because we're committing 11 slots in our deck to playing Luxray, the games won't be lasting as long most of the time, so we don't necessarily need to win those war of attritions as often, and prizing hurts a lot less when we'll be pulling stuff out of the prizes a lot more aggressively with Luxray EX. So if we do prize a one-of copy of Penny or something, we do have like a chance to pull it out. So we're not just trying to penny loop with 1 penny in certain situations. For other new additions to the deck list, we do have the Fezandipiti, which is extremely helpful in this deck. I didn't initially think it was going to be that good, but it helps you play without Pidgeot, because like we're an aggressive Luxray deck some of the time. It's really hard to have turn 2 Candy Pidgeot, Candy Luxray, new upper energy, like one-hit knockout. But the Fezandipiti, and also to an extent the higher rare candy counts, means we can sometimes just go for a Luxray EX like super early in the game without going for Pidgeot first, when in the past, like playing Bird Control, you would really not want to do anything until you get your Pidgeot down. And the Fezandipiti helps us continue to find like the pieces that we're missing, and also helps us set up Pidgeot later down the road, even if we don't go for it early on in the game. Definitely a very cool option to have. There's also the Genesect, which if it has a tool card attached, makes so our opponent cannot play A-Specs, and this basically is going to be just trying to turn off Prime Catcher a lot of the time. It just takes a switch card out of our opponent's deck, so it makes our job a lot easier if we're trying to retreat lock in certain situations, and also just helps keep our Pidgeot a lot safer. And also don't overlook the ability to be able to shut off Unfair Stamp. In the Gardevoir matchup, one of their strongest plays is Devo plus Unfair Stamp, and with Genesect, they could not do that. Going into the trainer cards, really the only new addition is the Xerosix Machinations, but it's really the most powerful new addition that the deck has. Just combining Xerosix with Luxray EX is just a devastating combo sometimes. A lot of decks are going to just have really big hands and want to keep more than 3 cards. Really devastating combo with Lux EX. And also this sort of fills the niche that Chi-Yu could have sometimes, where we need to like aggressively progress the game, and like we If our opponent just wants to draw their entire deck, play Iono, do that over and over again and play for the tie. Chiyu would help deny that, but there's no Chiyu in this list anymore. But the Xerosic kind of makes up for that, because if they're going to draw their 20 card deck and play Iono, we can play Xerosic, force them to discard their hands, and help the game last a lot less long. Really, the trainer count is very similar to previous control builds, just slimmed down. We are playing a second copy of Buddy Poffin, just because in a lot of matchups we really need to get Shinx and Pidgey down as quick as possible. So and if we whiff our early turn basics, like especially against Regidrago, it can be pretty hard to set up and come back. I found Night Stretcher in this list a lot more useful than Super Rod. There's no basic energies, so you really need like the full 3 effect that Super Rod. Just the convenience that Night Stretcher provides is super valuable. We also have Roseanne and Cyllene to also throw back in more Pokemon if we need more than just the one that Night Stretcher provides. The Defiance Vest has been kind of in and out of control lists as of late. It helps make it so our Pidgeot can live a Giratina V-Star attack. Escape Board was sort of included in that Luxray shell of cards you have to play if you want to play Luxray. It just helps you get Luxray EX active turn 2 more consistently, which is kind of the name of the game with this deck. We had that CM Devo in the list. It does sort of synergize with our like disruption approach with Lux EX and Xerosic, but is very important in a handful of matchups against those evolving decks. More on that here in a moment. The Calamitous Wasteland does seem like a pretty goofy card at first glance, but it's actually really important for disrupting a lot of the most popular decks. Things like Regidrago and Charizard do not play very many stadiums, so if you like combine Calamitous Wasteland with like Gust Up a useless Pokemon that they can't attack with, and you can also use like a Fang Snipe with Lux V or Lux EX, where you're sort of like retreat locking them and sniping their hand at the same time. And then for the energy count, we have to play an additional double turbo to sort of accommodate Luxray. We have the Mist Energy to like block Team Devo. And yeah, I intentionally saved the best for last year. Neo Upper Energy is probably the card I could ask the most about, like, why is this out here over something like an Unfair Stamp? And Unfair Stamp is no doubt a powerful card. The synergy with Luxray is very obvious. Having to be triggered by a knockout is a little annoying just because there's so much draw in the format, especially now that Fezandipiti exists. So its power is mitigated some, but also New Upper Energy just opens up so much for this deck by giving Luxray a one-hit knockout option. When you're playing against control, you're not always necessarily trying to like follow a conventional prize map. Normally you want to be thinking like in a prize race matchup, how can I win in as few turns as possible? But when you're facing against control and they're trying to actively take things away from you, you're more thinking about how can I make it so my opponent has to take as many turns as possible to win the game. Like something like benching a Radiant Greninja early at against a control deck. Yes, by drawing cards you could be reducing your own time to win, but you're also reducing your own time to lose basically. So most of the time it would not be worth benching that trappable Pokemon. Even though it is helping you out, it's probably going to hurt you more in the long run. So how does that all relate to Neo Upper Energy? Well, like throughout the game, our opponent is trying to maintain a high amount of turns for us to win the game. They want to make us have to work as much as possible to win. So if they're taking us slow, managing their resources to try to not sort of expose themselves, it can be kind of hard to win sometimes with like an older control deck. But the Neo Upper Energy basically means our opponent always has to be looking at the game as, well, if I don't do things relatively quick here, they also have the capacity to win the game in 3 turns. So they have to play a lot more aggressively than they would like to sometimes, and that sort of opens the door for alt-win cons like Ogerpon. Just because our opponent has to always respect the capacity of our deck to take prizes aggressively. And if you didn't have the Neo Upper Energy, you just simply wouldn't have that capability, and it make this deck so much easier to go up against. Before we get into the matchups, I do want to quickly share that I've started a new group on Metafy. I'll have all kinds of different written content like articles and even tournament reports. And if you've ever wanted to get my coaching in the past, there is a discount tier available where you can get unlimited 30% off any of my coaching plans. And also I wanted to take a quick moment to thank my sponsors, TC Evolutions, for all the best card gaming accessories, and also Blue Ditto for Pokemon's sealed products, slabs, and even single cards. I'll put all the links in the description below. And yeah, now back to the video. The first matchup I want to talk about is what many people would say is the best deck in format right now, and that is Regidrago. And it seems pretty terrifying to play against on paper. They're not only one of the fastest decks in format, they also can take multiple KOs in a single turn early on in the game on your really small Pokemon. So normally Control wants to go blind second to just give yourself the best chance to set up. But into the Regidrago matchup, you really want to go first just to try to capitalize on that free turn, hopefully get some of your stuff set up before they start sniping them. Really, the primary objective is to just knock out 2 Regidrago V-Stars, because once that happens, they really can't load up a third. It's very uncommon to have the resources to do that. So the way I like to do that is use Luxray EX's first attack to hit into their first Drago for 100 and snipe whatever they may have sitting hands. And then on the next turn, using either Counter Catcher or Boss to use a Defiance Band new upper KO on their benched one. So then the Regidrago you hit the first time has 100 damage on it and is right in Ursaluna range. So then yeah, once you knock it out with Ursaluna, they usually don't have another attacker ready to go, so it's pretty much GG's after that. You do have to do stuff to protect your board so they can't totally overrun you. Putting Mist Energy and Defiance Vest on Pidgeot is really good just to keep it as safe as long as possible. And also Genesect is really awesome to be able to shut off their Prime Catcher, which not only just makes it harder for them to KO stuff on your bench, it also essentially takes a switching card away from them, and lists are only usually playing Prime Catcher and Switch, so if they have to use their Switch early or they Legacy Star and discard it, there's a chance you even can use Ogerpon to retreat lock one of their bench Pokemon. If you don't get off to the strongest start, they start like sniping your Shinx before you can get them evolved up. You can use Wastelands plus Counter Catcher and snipe their hands to try to open up that retreat lock as a win con if your more aggressive strategy is not working. The next matchup I want to talk about is Charizard EX, and before our game plan into Zard was really dependent on Mimikyu, but there's no Mimikyu in the list anymore, so what do we do? So we want to open up the game pressure in their hand with Luxray V. It's important that we do Luxray V and not EX because we do not want to take prizes immediately, but we still want to put pressure on their hand, hit their candies, sort of force them to aggressively use their candies, because that plays into our strategy that revolves around Team Devo. Once our Luxray either gets knocked out or gets pennied up, we want to use Counter Catcher plus Lost City and a Luxray EX to get rid of their Charmeleon forever. And after that, we just want to use TM Devo on consecutive turns and just make it so that they cannot set up another stage 2 Pokemon, and we can just win by attacking with Luxray EX over and over again. Some other things to consider in this matchup are just Xerosix is so incredible. If you can use it early and combine it with a snipe, it is super hard for them to keep everything that they want. Don't overlook Calamitous Wasteland in this matchup either. They don't usually play a bunch of stadiums. They have a hard time keeping stadiums off Xerosix, so you can definitely strand like Rotoms or Pidgeys in the active spots and just make it even harder for their deck to function. And there's also just sort of Ogerpon in our back pocket as something that we can utilize. Most of these lists are playing a Turo, a Pal Pad, so it's not very easy to retreat log unless we can get some snipes, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. But yeah, overall the Charizard matchup is pretty drastically different than it was before. We're playing a lot more aggressively into them, but it definitely still feels like a very solid matchup. Next matchup I'm going to talk about is Gardevoir, which is a pretty messy matchup with a lot of things happening. Previously, going in with Luxray V as our initial attacker was super good. The only drawback was it didn't manipulate our opponent's board in any way. Now Luxray EX kind of gives us the best of both worlds. We can continue to snipe our opponent's hand like we always wanted to do, but also we can actually knock stuff out. So we want to go in with Luxray EX as fast as possible, like start targeting those Curlias, make it hard for them to get to their energy in the discard pile, find the stuff that they need. Combining that with Xerosix can also be incredibly strong because usually their hands are quite big. Eventually they're going to have to respond with either a Gardevoir EX or a Drifloon, and both results are pretty fine for us. If they hit with Gardevoir, we can hit the Gardevoir back with Luxray EX and then use TM Devo to devolve all their Curlias and their Gardevoir EX, making it impossible for them to attack on their next turn. And if they use Drifloon to get a one-hit knockout on us, we can just use Lost Vacuum combined with Lost City, lost in the Drifloon forever, then they do not have anything that can one-shot Bloodmoon Ursaluna, and that could basically sweep the rest of the game for us. I much prefer these offensive strategies over just heavily leaning into Ogerpon Retreat Lock, because not only do they not have to bench anything that can get trapped, without knowing what their list is, it's like still pretty split evenly whether they play 2 Turos or 1, so it kind of sucks to like pigeonhole yourself into a retreat lock game plan only for them to play that second turbo, and you were playing for a win con that never existed in the first place. We do want to make sure we're protecting our board accordingly, like putting down Genesect just so they can't hit us with an unfair stamp is super awesome, and also putting Mist Energy on Pidgeot is really good to block TM Devo. I'd fill out the rest of my bench in the mid game with Fezandipiti and Manaphy just so I kind of get Screamtail sniped, and we also have that Fezandipiti draw when we're constantly getting Iono spammed in the late game. Guardian is probably the hardest matchup to play as control just from a skill point of view. There's so many different lines that you can take, and it all just kind of depends on what the board state looks like. I don't think it's a bad matchup, just a pretty skill intensive one. Next, I want to talk about Raging Bolt, and earlier I said about how there are matches where we want to approach it as a 2-2-2 prize race stat, and this is pretty much the matchup for that. Ideally, we open a single prizer, they knock it out and go down to 5 prizes, and then we respond with a new upgrade Luxray EX, they knock it out, and we go Ursaluna back-to-back turns and win the game just by prize racing them faster than they can. Of course, it doesn't always go that well. Sometimes we will whiff that turn 2 knockout, maybe new uppers prize. So then we have to find some kind of alternate way to win the game. Sometimes you can Ursaluna spam plus Iono. Not super reliable because their deck gets super thinned out. It's not that hard for them to 4 energies and play to one-shot you. So we sort of have to lean into a more retreat lock focused game plan. Zero-6 Machinations makes it pretty hard for them to hold everything that they want. So sometimes you can go Zero-6 combined with Counter Catcher, Calamitous Wasteland, and a Fang Snipe, and potentially slow them down some. Genesect to shut off Prime Catcher also is super good, but really you just want to hopefully overrun them with your own aggression, and if not, hopefully your disruptive game plan can kind of handlock them or get rid of enough resources that retreat lock is opened up. And the Miraidon matchup is basically the exact same game plan as this, except it's a lot easier since they cannot reach the HP amounts of Luxray and Ursaluna nearly as easily, so even if you do start behind initially, it's not too bad for you to just able to take a knockout, take a hit, and then go knockout, and take prizes faster than they can. The next matchup I want to talk about is Lugia, and if you've played Bird Control in the past, it's pretty much the identical game plan. You want to just aggressively chase their Minchinos and Chinchinos, because once those are all gone, they cannot one-hit Bloodmoon Ursaluna, and you can just penny loop and take your remaining prizes. Luxray EX is way more efficient at getting rid of Chinchinos, because it one-shots them for 1 energy, even if they haven't taken any prizes or anything like that. But also it can discard Chinchinos out of their hand, making your job go a lot quicker. In the past, if Lugia was kind of dead drawing, you didn't really have a whole lot of options of what you could do, because you're kind of just waiting for them to take prizes. You could use Luxray's Fang Snipe, but it wasn't really that great. But now, if they're just going to sit there using Read the Winds, trying to assemble their combos, we can just go in with an aggressive Luxray EX and basically put them on like a 3-turn clock of getting their Archeops to the discard pile and getting them out. That's really the only win condition we have in this matchup, but of all the control decks that I've played recently, this one has by far the best Lugia matchup. Even though it's not super meta relevant right now, I do want to touch on Lost Box real quick. It's basically like the same thing like you used to do. You just want to disrupt their hand with your Luxray as quick as possible. We don't have like Airy or Misfortune Sisters to take cards away, but Zerosic is even better. It's really hard for them to retain their resources, probably even harder than it used to be, honestly. Luxray EX is also just an amazing attacker, can one-shot anything in their deck, and also can deal with Cramorant and Sableye pretty efficiently, which was pretty hard to do before. So yeah, not that there's too much Lost Box roaming around right now, but it's still a pretty good matchup. I guess we also can briefly touch on Quad Iron Thorns. It is by far Bird Control's worst matchup. If we can somehow high roll a turn 2 Luxray EX, get through their initial Iron Thorns, we have a shot, but it's pretty hard to do that, and if they hit some Crushing Hammers, it can be even harder to maintain that. So, I mean, you can tech for it with like a Flutter Mane or a couple Mimikyus, but yeah, it's just a pretty miserable matchup. And the last matchup I wanted to touch on was Snorlax Stall, and this has been routinely one of Bird Control's best matchups, and I would say that it's no different. Before, it's been a Chi-Yu race where basically, yeah, be a race to the bottom with Chi-Yu, but the control player could just lost to another player's Chi-Yu and there's nothing that they could do about it. But Stall is not playing Chi-Yu anymore, and also we're not playing Chi-Yu anymore. So our new updated game plan is we wanted to spam Luxray V the entire game. We want to get rid of those handheld fans, Crushing Hammers, Yakumas, any sort of way that they could disrupt that. And then once their deck in their hand gets small enough, we can play as Zerosic, use Fang Snipe, and then that next turn play an Iono, and they're forced to draw their entire deck as long as everything is they're less than 6 cards. Pretty much the only reason you want to deviate from this game plan is if they were playing Chi-Yu or playing Sandshrew, and then in those cases you'd want to use Luxray EX to knock out those threats, send them to the Lost Zone, and then go back to your regularly scheduled programming. But yeah, nothing's changed. We still bully Snorlax though. So yeah, that's all that I have for today. If you have any questions, anything I didn't touch on, feel free to leave a comment or shoot me a DM on Twitter or Discord, and I'm more than happy to help you out. If you would please join my Metafy group if that's something that interests you. I do have an article dropping on there very soon. It might already be up depending on when you're watching this video. I really appreciate you taking the time of your day to watch my video. It means a lot. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one.